Hey, fifth graders. Today we're going to be going over test review slides day 3. So get out your journal, follow along, maybe open up the slides you were assigned to check your answers, and take as many notes as you need to help. Here we go. So this is the dreaded decimal area model. I know we looked at some of these that looked really, really weird, but this one's actually pretty normal. So I'll show you how to solve this monster. It's actually not as bad as you think. So let me shrink this over here, give us some room to work, and we'll start with identifying what the formula for area is. And we know that length times width equals area. Okay, so that gives us all the components of this shape that I'm going to circle here. It has a length, it has a width, and if we multiply those two, it'll give us the area of everything inside of this shape. Now, even though it's split into two rectangles, it is actually one big rectangle. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. What we notice here is that instead of a multiplication symbol, we have a division symbol, which is the opposite or the inverse operation. So we can't write length times width equals area. We'd have to do our fact family and kind of write the inverse of this, which would be area divided by length equals width. Okay, and I could continue writing the rest of those. I could write width times length equals area, and I could write area divided by width equals length. Those are all going to get me the same answers, right? I'm just moving the numbers around and changing the operation for my fact family. So I'm going to label the boxes just like I have it here. This will be area, this will be length, and this will be the width. Lucky for me, the model above already has the length and the width labeled for me. This is the length, which is 6. I'll go ahead and fill that in. And the width is right here. Oops, let's see if I can. There you go. Let's try that again. I don't want to circle the numbers. There you go. There is the width. Well, it's two numbers because it's counting for two pieces of that rectangle. So I have to add those two together. So if I add, sorry, I'll try to make that a little bit neater. If I add 20 hundredths or 2/10, then I put my decimal and add 0.3. I'm going to end up with 3, 2 plus 0 is 2, so 23 hundredths. That's what my width is, 23 hundredths. So really all I have left to do is figure out my area. So I could, according to this formula, I could multiply the length times the width to find the area. But again, very fortunate in this situation that they give me the area here. It's just, again, in two numbers. So all I have to do is add those two numbers together. 1 and 2/10 plus 18 hundredths. 0 plus 8 is 8. 2 plus 1 is 3. Bring the decimal down because I'm doing addition. And 1. So the area is 1 and 38 hundredths. And there you go. That's how you tackle the big bad area model. Lucky for us, they gave us most of the numbers, but if we didn't have the area, we could just multiply the width and the length. Okay? All right, next slide. Okay, so now we have a single step problem. We'll go ahead and read it. The DIY, which is do-it-yourself recipe for a homemade scarf, says you need 68.4 or 68 4/10 feet of cloth for 4 scarves. How long will each scarf be? We know that each means 1. Okay, so remember our get strategy. Groups, each, and total. And remember what I told you to find out if you have the total in your word problem. If you do not have the total, that's supposed to be a question mark, then you're multiplying. If you do have the total, then you're dividing. So it says we need 68.4 feet of cloth for 4 scarves. That must be the total amount of cloth I need, so that means I have the total, which means I will be dividing. So I can divide 68 divided by 4. I'm sorry, 68.4. And we're going to divide that by 4. So this looks like a standard division problem, just with a decimal. So I know that when I'm dividing with decimals, just like Paula Abdul said, the decimal goes straight up. So we'll put that decimal straight up to the top. And that's it. We don't have to do anything else with the decimal at that point. Now I can just go through my long division steps. 4 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. And then let's move this a little bit smaller so I can get all my math in there. 6 subtract 4 is 2. Bring down the 8. So now I have 4. How many 4s are in 28, or how many groups of 4 are in 28? I know that's 7, because that's a math fact. I guess I have to make this even smaller still. Okay, 7 times 4 is 28. Subtract again. That's 0. And if you don't remember, we're doing the steps, right? Divide, multiply, subtract, and bring it down. Divide, multiply, subtract, and bring it down. So now I'm on the bring it down part, bring down the 4. And how many groups of 4 are in 4? Well, that's 1. 1 times 4 is 4, and I'm left with the 0 remainder. It is important to note, though, that you can have decimals in length. So it would be okay to have that 17.1, 1/10 of a foot, right? 17 feet and then 1/10 of a foot. So that's okay to have that in a decimal. Makes sense to have in length. If it was a person or a table or a bus, right, we'd have to adjust it, because we can't have a percent of a bus or a person or a table, which seems to be the only interpreting remainders questions we ever get in 5th grade is involving a bus, a table, or a kid. So there's our answer, 17 and 1/10. So each scarf would be 17 and 1/10 feet long. And I used division here, and I did use some multiplication at the top, and I actually even used some subtraction, right? Division has a lot. If I wanted to check my work, I would just multiply 68.4. I would multiply 17.1 times 4, and I should get 68.4. So that's how I would check my work to make sure that's the right answer. I'll let you do that. Again, multiply 17.1 times 4, and you should get 68.4. Okay, next slide. Okay, for the next one, it's a solve and then choose the model, but not really. That's a mistake. Sorry, it should say single step problem. If I want to eat 436.9 pounds of Skittles in 17 days, how many pounds should I eat each day? Remember, each means 1, so how many pounds would I eat in 1 day? This is pretty similar to the one we just did. If I use the get strategy to see if I have a total, it's E. I do. I have a total of 436.9 pounds of Skittles, or 9/10 pounds of Skittles. So if I do have my total, then that means I am doing division. So I need to find out how many pounds I can eat in 1 day. Well, I'm going to take my total, 436 and 9/10, 436 and 9/10, and I'm going to divide by 17. So it's a standard division. Remember that Paula Abdul says you've got to bring that decimal straight up. There you go. And then I'm done with the decimal for division. That's pretty easy. So bring the decimal straight up. Now I just follow my steps for division. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring it down. And I start with my groups of 17. Groups of 17 in 4 are 0. Groups of 17 in 43. I'm going to make this smaller and start doing my guessing checks over here on the side. Let's start with 17 times, let's try 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. 51. That's too big. So I know that I have to go to 2 because 51 is over 43, and I'm trying to get as close to 43 without going over as possible. 17 times 2, 14. 2 times 1 plus 3 is 34. Perfect. So we'll put a 2 here. And 2 times 17 is 34. Now I can subtract. And as I'm subtracting, I know I need to do some regrouping. Make this 3, and this becomes 13. 13 minus 4 is 9. So on the B part, which divide, multiply, subtract, and bring it down. So I bring down the 6, and now I have 96. So once I bring down, I'm starting my division steps over again and going back to divide, or as I've said before, groups of. How many groups of 17 are in 96? If I check my guess and check work, I have a 3 and a 2 that I multiplied by. And none of them got close to 96, but 3 was close at 51. So let's try 5. Let's try 5. 17 times 5. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3 is 8. 85. That's pretty close. I don't think I could get closer than that. So let's put a 5 here. And 5 times 17 is 85. I can subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1. 9 minus 8 is 1. And I bring down the 9. So I have 119. Well, 17 times 5 gave me 85. So let's try 7. Yeah, let's try 7. 17 times 7. 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 1 is 7 plus 4 is 11. Perfect. So I know that there are 7 groups of 17 and 119. So that means I should be eating 25 and 7/10 or 25.7 Skittles each day. Ooh, it's a lot of Skittles. 25 and 7/10 Skittles each day. And to check that work, I would just take that number, 25 and 7/10, and multiply it by 17, and that should give me the total of 436.9. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is a single step problem, but it does have a model, so I should have wrote model in here. Apologies. So what we're looking for is an equation. We got to find an equation that matches this number line. And what we need to find is the 3 blanks at the bottom. We have blank divided by blank equals blank. So I'm dividing. So that tells me a couple of things. If I go by my get strategy, right? If I know the total, I divide. So division is like subtraction, where the biggest number has to go first. So the total should go in the first blank. And then it should be each in groups, or groups in each, depending. It doesn't really matter at this point. The total is the most important thing. So if I look at the purple number up here, that is where the number line ends, where the jumps end. So that's going to be my total. That's my total, 6/10 or 0.6. And I'm dividing it by how many groups to find out how much is in each group. So there's my get. It's just spelled TGE, but it's still get. Total divided by groups will give me each. So if I'm trying to find the groups here, I can look at the jumps, right? Essentially, the jumps are the groups. So I have 1, 2 jumps, so that means I have 2 groups. And then that leaves the last blank, which is how many are in each group. Well, if I count, and if I end here at 0.6, that means that each of these is 0.1, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6. So here is where the first jump ends, which would be 0.3. And then another 0.3 would give me 0.6. Okay, I see what this is. So it's just telling me that 6/10 divided by 2 is 3/10, because each group is 3/10. Each jump is 3/10 rather. Right, and if I wanted to check that, I can just do a simple 6 times 3/10. 2 times 3 is 6, with 1 decimal place is 6/10. Easy. That's an easy one. All right, next. Okay, another single step problem. If I lined up 24 shoes end to end, don't ask me why, don't know why I would do that, the total length would be 252 inches. What is the length of one shoe? Ooh, well, look what I found here. Total length would be 252 inches. So if I have the total, remember my get strategy, what does that mean? Groups each total. If I do have the total, that means I'm dividing. So I need to divide 252 by 24 shoes to figure out what the length of one shoe is. So let's give myself some room here. So we'll do 252 inches, and it's 24 shoes. And it says real easy. I'm going to do my divide, multiply, subtract, and bring it down. Sorry, I don't know what happened to my D there. Now, no decimals here. That makes it even easier. I can start with my groups of 24, which would be my divide part, right? So 24. How many groups of 24 are in 2? 0. How many groups of 24 are in 25? That's easy. It's 1. So 1 times 24 is 24. And I can subtract. 25 minus 24 is 1. Bring down the 2. So how many groups of... There. How many groups of 24 are in 12? Well, that doesn't make any sense. I would say 0, right? Because there are 0 groups of 24 in 12, and 0 times 24 is 0. So if I subtract, that gives me 12 again. Okay, so I have a remainder of 12 here. 10, remainder 12. Here's the deal. I can think about adding a decimal to this if it deals in length, and inches is length. So I could possibly see if this works. I want to add a decimal. So that means I have to bring it straight up, just like Paul Abdul told me to. And I want to add a 0. So I can bring that 0 down. And now I can ask myself how many groups of 24 are in 120. Okay, so now I can do a guessing check over here on the side. Remember, I like to start with 5 if I'm not real sure where to. It's a good middle point. This tells me if I have to go, if the number is too small, I can go higher. If the number is too big, I can go lower. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 2 is 12. So that would be a 5 here. Now that's 10.5. That does make sense. It's 120. And that's going to give me 0 when I subtract those. So it's 10.5 or 10 and 5/10 or 10 and a half. Does that make sense? Let's go back to my problem. If I lined up 24 shoes end to end, the total length will be 25 or 252 inches. What is the length of one shoe? One shoe is 10.5 or 10 and a half inches long. Yeah, shoe sizes can be in decimals, so this does make sense. I would say this is a correct answer. Now to check it, I can always take my quotient of 10.5 and multiply that by 24. And that should end up with 252, which would mean I have a correct answer. Good job, guys.